Good evening, witches.
Hello, witches.
Happy Yule, Merry Yule.
Happy solstice.
Happy solstice.
Hopefully you're in the part of the world where solstice is today, because here in Florida, it is solstice.
It's solstice, yep.
It's solstice.
Today
It
and
may
tomorrow-ish.
not be where you are, depending.
Yeah.
Last week we had somebody from Ireland.
Ireland.
There's someone from Ireland join us, so it's probably not. Definitely,
No,
probably not.
it's solstice there because it's the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right.
So Ireland is covered for solstice.
It can be confusing.
Yeah. So Australia, New Zealand, South America, anywhere that's in the southern hemisphere, below the equator, they're at their summer solstice right now.
So you might notice, if you've been here for the last 3 episodes, that we're back to our usual location for filming our lives.
Yeah.
Which means we don't have the long table in front of us, so we can see all of you. And I would like to start with the cheers.
Oh, yes.
Let's cheers. So we were going to
cheers. Cheers to the season.
Cheers to the season.
Whatever you want to call it for yourself.
We have behind us candles burning because it's representing the fire element for this time of year, because that's what this is all about, really. We're in the old days, they were like, yes, pray the sun's going to come back. But we know the sun's.
They're hoping. We're just going to concentrate. It's getting ready to be really cold and all that. We're going to focus on the sun coming back. So fires were a way to help keep that the hope alive of the sun returning.
In addition to keeping people warm.
Yes. I want to say hello to Full Moon Rising Tarot that's on right now, and Jacqueline and Kristen. Hi, you guys.
Hi.
We were going through a lot of things that we could talk about, but I think and the reason why we started this and Witch School and all the stuff that we've done is because there's so much information out there for everybody. Just getting more information isn't always helpful in our practices. It's actually talking about how to minimalize or bring it down into a smaller quantity of things that you can talk about doing or find something that really works for you.
Oh my gosh. Carmela is back from Ireland. Oh my goodness.
Hello. So with that, one of the things that Kat and I always do is we sort of scour the internet, because as newer witches come into the practice, or people who are looking for ideas, they search things like Pinterest and Instagram and the internet, Google, learnreligions.com, all these places, and they are going to give you lists of stuff to honor or celebrate the holiday. And so immediately when I searched Pinterest, there was one that said 50 ways to celebrate the winter solstice. I'm like, 50?
50?
That's a lot. I mean, it's good because maybe there's something there for everybody. But then we get into how vague these things can be. So that's one of the things that we're going to go through tonight is
I think we need 3 ways for new witches to celebrate the holiday and make it super simple.
Yeah. Well, each year that you celebrate or practice, you're going to build on your practice. So I think that there is some undue pressure that we put on ourselves sometimes, where it's like, I'm not doing enough. I didn't do this. I didn't honor. I didn't have these herbs. I didn't burn this candle. It was like us thinking we didn't do enough for ourselves or towards our practice. Sometimes that can be a lot.
That's real. That's a real thing. This morning I drew tarot cards because I'm starting to do the card a day again. My daughter-in-law got me 6 different decks of tarot cards, bless her, or goddess bless her, for my birthday. So I'm going through these cards. So I'm starting to pull them. She got me all this stuff like stickers and books to track. So this morning I pulled the sun and I was like, oh, that's such a happy card. Totally not making the connection until my daughter said something to me about, yes, that's the perfect card for today. And it still didn't click. So this is what happens, at least for me, at maybe it's old people thing. I don't know. It's like making that connection between the meaning of the sun for today, for the people from the past, and even for us for today. It's like, why are we celebrating this holiday?
Yeah. That's a great question to actually answer. So I am going to take that as an official question. Was it an official question?
It's an official question now.
I didn't see you raise your hand, so I wasn't sure. No. Okay. Why are we celebrating the holiday today, the winter solstice? This is basically a celestial event that does happen. This is when our Earth is tilted all the way to its farthest max away from the sun in the northern hemisphere. I'm getting sciencey, I know. But this is when the Earth is taking a rest from growing, because we've been getting shorter days since the equinox, right? Mabon. We've been getting shorter days, and now we're at that shortest day longest night. So there's lots of ways to frame it, but it is the longest night or the shortest day, however you want to see that. And from here on out, we're going to be growing in our daytime by about a minute and a half every day until we finally reach the max sun day, which is midsummer. And midsummer is when we have our longest day. We're here in Florida. Our longest day is like 14 and a half hours of sun. So we love that. And even now it's harder for us to feel winter solstice. I was out in my garden this morning, you guys, like butterflies are hatching. There's, everything is still growing and normal here for us. So even with us, it's hard on our practice to say we can really get into the vibe of the old traditions. So that's another thing we want to point out tonight is if you're not able to really get into the books and the online stuff that's like, here's how the old traditions did it, and you're not in an area that has those things available, or it's not what your environment looks like we're not going to get snow ever.
And I came from snow. So I lived in Kansas City for 30 years before I moved here 4.5 years ago.
Yeah.
So normally this time of year it would be really cold, and hopefully we would have a white Christmas. The way I understand it, not many people are going to get that this year in the US, but it would be very obvious in Kansas City that it is winter because it's winter. Every tree is bare. There's very few evergreens where I lived in Kansas City. There's some, but evergreens were not a thing. And then here in Florida, it's like when I grew up in San Diego, when I was young, everything looked the same all year round. There was not seasonal changes. And so, I feel like it's almost easier to connect with the seasons when you experience those changes. So if you live in a place that's not like that, it's kind of like, okay, remembering that this is actually winter when you can go outside and plant things and grow things, and you're watering your plants.
This is our growing season.
You're watering you're planting new blooms. Listen, in Florida, this is the time to plant because it allows your plants to get deep roots so that they can withstand the brutally hot summers that we have here. And that's really unusual for, I think, most parts of the country. I don't know maybe Arizona experiences that, but I haven't lived there, so I don't know.
But this is where we talk about, as witches and coming into our practices and creating them for ourselves, really honing in on what your area is like and how that can support your practice. So for us, and what Kat and I will talk about probably tomorrow or within the next couple of days as we spend a lot of time together, is how do we experience winter when we don't truly have winter? So what does winter look like within our heart, our soul, our desires, our growth cycle, what we're going towards, what's our future look like? If we relate it to what the earth is supposed to be doing or is doing in some places, we have to think about that quiet time and the darkness or less sun, so that the growth is not happening on the surface. It's happening inside, in the dirt, in our souls, inside of our bodies. That's where the replenishing and the growing is still alive and well. And on the outside, it doesn't seem like there's any growth happening.
Well, interesting that you say that, because here in Florida, we do actually have snow.
Oh gosh.
It's a weed. It's a weed that is prolific in, I think, these cold months, right?
It blooms all
winter long. Yeah. So it's this weed that has these little white flowers on it, these 5-pointed little star-like flowers. They're so everywhere. And everyone's like, how do you get rid of it? It's like, no, don't get rid of it.
And the bees love it.
The bees love it. Yeah. And we call it, here in Florida, they call it Florida snow.
So your yard actually looks white when you walk out.
It does.
It looks like you have big white patches of snow. Like if it wasn't 75 degrees out, you're like, is that snow on the ground? It kind of looks like it. So,
but I think the other thing that was really important about what you said is for us to recognize as witches, what's really going on this time of year. Even if you live in a place like us where you can plant and garden and things, and you're watering and you're fertilizing and you're transplanting and all the things that we can do here just because of the fact that it's warmer here for us. But what's actually going on in most parts and everywhere else around our country is that things have died, except for the evergreens, of course. And this is this rebirthing period, right? And it's the quiet time. I read something about this, and it's it was about making New Year's resolutions and why New Year's resolutions, typically people don't stick with them. And it's because it's the wrong time of year to make resolution for growth and doing things, because the earth is, Mother Earth is like, this is the quiet time. This is the time to be looking inward and not trying to manifest like, what are you going to achieve in 2024? The time to do that is what, in the spring,
it would be a star in the spring equinox.
So I guess my advice is like, I'm not making any new, it's like, why does it never work out when I start going to the gym on January 2nd and then I quit like by January 31st? I can't stick with it. Well, that's part of the cycle that we're experiencing. And I think because we're not as connected to the earth as we once were, because we depended on the land to go out and get our food and the cattle and all that. Now we just go to the store and get it. And we can virtually get anything if we're willing to pay for it. So we've sort of lost that connection with, this is a quiet time. I think this is a really good time for journaling and reflecting and spending time with your tarot, like I'm starting to do now. And just like, okay, just thinking about things and like reflecting on things and not making any plans yet, because those, not making any plans to move things forward.
Yeah,
that's my thoughts.
The rumination. It's a good time for rumination and for growth. This is the time when we're all together and there is a lot of high energy and stress around because of the other holidays. But internally with our practices, you should be taking time out for yourself and sitting quietly somewhere in that reflection that Kat's talking about, because we, like the earth, we need that downtime in order to spring forward and grow in another, 12 weeks or so, when we have a star come up in March. So we do ourselves a disservice trying to push everything out right now.
And I think that's really hard, because in our modern day society, it's almost like if you go out right now, it's a frenzy everywhere you go. Everybody's bustling around. They're trying to get Christmas. It's like rush, do, go, invite all the people, do all the parties and all the stuff, when really, it's the time for quiet. But of course we do want to celebrate families. We want to gather and feast,
but not in the frantic expectations and
it's
pressure
hard
way.
not to get caught up in that. I feel like it's really hard not to get caught up in that. And so if as a new witch, especially if you can find some time to spend alone, where you can just sort of like
reflect, journal, cards,
and block
something about yourself. Anything,
I learned something.
You did?
I did, and I want to share it because it is actually relevant.
Oh boy,
to this conversation. So Wasel. I had to look up how to say this. It's Wail.
I think there's S's in
there.
There's S's for the L's.
Okay, Wasel. So this Wasel, what this meant was, because I had never heard that word before, but it was a time in the past to eat, drink, be merry. It was a lot of celebration. So it meant celebrating, drinking lots of alcohol. And I was like, count me in. Cheers. Count me in for that. Thanks. And being merry. And so that was, I'm not saying the word right. I have a note over there, but I thought that was really interesting, because I really didn't know what that meant. The word meant,
yeah. Because we know it as a drink. So we have Wasel or Wasel, and it's a drink that's like mulled wines, or so it does mean that mixed together. Yeah. Right. Well, and these words float around. So a great one to talk about at this point then, Yule. Yule is actually an Old Norse word that meant like winter time or winter solstice or something, so Old Norse is not necessarily written down in all the things that go around. But if you can remember that's what Yule actually means, is like when you say happy Yule, you're saying happy winter solstice or happy winter time.
Do you want to know how the Norse spelled Yule?
Oh, give it to me.
Juul.
Like Jewel?
Yeah, that's how they spelled it. Right. I looked it up.
There you go. So we can make these little markers to remember stuff that this all started with, like Kat's like, why are we celebrating this time of year? We're ending one cycle, which was all of the fall season. That's it, right? It's all done. We're not going outside to plant or plan or anything. We're going to be sitting inside for at least the next 6 weeks.
Unless you live in Florida.
I mean, in theory. So there's this downtime where then in 6 weeks, you're sort of preparing. It's internal planning rather than planning out, mapping out. You're going through like, oh, if I do this next year, then what would the end of the year expectation be maybe? And that's where you get into the journaling and figuring stuff out, because for In Bulk, which comes up on February 2nd, same day as Groundhog Day. What?
I just had an epiphany.
Oh gosh, what?
I just had this epiphany about what happened to us last year.
What do you mean?
So the three of us, me, Jamie, and my other daughter, Jolene, you guys might remember her. She's been with us before. We got together right after the first of the year and did a 12-month calendar, like look ahead. And those cards that we pulled, it's like, these aren't making any sense. And we went back, like we went later on, because the cards that we all pulled and we wrote everything down. We sat here, we did a year ahead spread. Yeah. And we pulled the cards and we're just like, okay, well, those aren't, the cards were not really connecting with us. So we went back like a month later, and I think the results were completely different. It's like, oh my God, it really makes sense. So I think that just confirms that this time of year is not a time to try to be doing too much planning for the future. It's a time more for internal reflecting. And
it's like a planning that doesn't happen on paper yet. So when you put it, I always think about it as like when you put a seed in the ground, the seed is really just getting used to its environment. It's not doing anything yet. It's just like, where am I at right now? Okay, dark, damp, it's soil, the temperature's right, I'm warm in the day, I'm cold at night. Okay, so now I know I'm in the right growing conditions. So it's actually assessing everything that's around it to say, is it time to sprout? And give it 7 to 10 days or whatever the seedling needs. And then in 7 to 10 days, it's like it sends a little shoot out to test the area, like, oh, okay, is this going to be safe for growing in? And once the first bottom one comes out, then a top one comes out, which will eventually be like the stalk of whatever you're growing. So even if we think about ourselves in the nature way as the seed that's in darkness right now in the soil, where you can't see anything alive on top, right? We're in that, it's not dead, but dormant time.
Yeah.
Everything under the ground, there's actually things working. And that's what's really going on internally for us. So I feel like we really talked about that part a lot. So when you're looking at things to do for practicing, does it align with that for you? Is that something that you feel like you want to do, that you're looking for? Because the next things are, the ideas that people have for Yule are all about the external stuff. Go do, buy, gather, put together, it's altars and flowers and doing a ceremony or a ritual, doing a spell, a blessing, a cleansing. There are all these things that are outside of ourselves. There's nothing that says that you have to do that. And if you want to do any or all of them, that's also okay. We really want you to focus on building a practice that you're happy with, just you. Like if you told nobody about it, you would sit and say, I'm really happy with how that went, or I'm happy that I did that, And sometimes you only do something once and then you're like, that wasn't for me. I'm not going to do that again. And it doesn't stay in your plan of care for yourself. But I think that that's where, build something that's unique for you. We're going to keep mentioning that because if you're looking in books and stuff, they're going to keep trying to go back to a set little box of how to celebrate or what to do.
Here's an example of that. Jamie pulled up a list of 50,
50 fun and meaningful Yule activities. It's a Pinterest post.
Okay. Yes. So on Pinterest, 50 fun and meaningful Yule activities. Yeah. One of them, which I thought was really interesting. What was it about collecting?
Oh, it just says get winter blooms for your home.
Get winter blooms.
Okay.
What the heck does that mean?
This is where in witchcraft or in just getting into something different, they give you a statement, but then there's no true definition for it. By winter blooms, everybody can get their own interpretation, which could be great, or it could be really frustrating for people looking for like step-by-step processes to follow. For winter blooms, I mean, in places where it's going to get really cold, am I dangling?
Poinsettias. No, I was thinking how poinsettias are everywhere.
I thought you were trying to tell me my flower.
No, I was pointing at the poinsettias on her crown, flower crown, because this is the time of year you see poinsettias. So maybe that's the winter bloom. I don't know. But if you live in somewhere like I lived in Kansas City, where this time of year everything's dead.
There's nothing blooming.
There's nothing blooming.
Right.
So in that case,
it can feel confusing too.
You might go out if I was still living there and I was practicing, and I wasn't when I was there because I didn't know anything. You might go out and click and pick up sticks and like dead flower.
Listen, or one of the things that I thought about is, okay, what's fallen, and it's not necessarily in bloom or alive, but it's preserved for the wintertime. You know, massive leaves. I've seen those maple leaves. They get like the size of your head, insane. And then evergreens, if you have evergreens, you could get an evergreen bunch. I mean, that's why we bring in the trees, right? That evergreen plant is to help us remember that things survive the winter, that our hardships and whatever's happening, that we're going to survive it. That's what the evergreen is for. Okay, so there's other thing. What does Yule mean to you? If you're brand new to it, how do you find out what Yule would even mean to you? You know, there's uncovering things like that is starting points for journaling during this season. Doing a card reading like Kat did, pulling cards for it, and then trying to make an association to how that fits with what Yule's celebratory definition is. We're celebrating the return of the sun. So there's like each holiday, I don't know if I've done this explanation before, but each holiday is like a swinging set of doors, okay? So when the holiday starts, it's the opening to one season, but the closing of another. So no matter what, every ending that we have of something is also the beginning of something else. Where we just had the end of our fall season, we now have the beginning of winter. Where we're having our longest night, now we're going to be working towards our longest day. Like it's the growth.
Oh my God. So yesterday, my tarot one card pull, I pulled the world, card number 21 in the major arcana, which is the ending of one cycle
and the beginning
of another
Dang,
cycle.
Tarot's trying to help you out.
So I'm just now making that connection. I love your analogy of the opening, closing doors. I've never heard that before. Yeah. That's like so.
It's the way, I mean, you've heard like when one door closes, another opens, or same thing. Anytime that there's an ending of something, it just means that you're either walking through the door is closed, you're in there. Think about it as a swinging door because you're just getting onto the other side of it. So even though that is shut, it opened into another section. So that's what all of the holidays for me represent, which is why I don't always celebrate them on time because I don't like having it defined by one day. I like it being over maybe 2 weeks where I do little things during that 2-week process. The holiday falls somewhere in the middle, and then I continue to do things that are with it, and then slowly move into that next holiday of knowing, oh man, I can really see the days are getting longer. You know, oh, today's sunrise was at 6:45 instead of 6:43 or something.
Okay, so I noticed this week I went back to the gym on Monday. Yay for me. I hadn't been since May. I had some dental surgery in May and I couldn't go exercise. And then after that, it was really easy not to go back. So anyway, so this week on Monday, I was like, I didn't make any plan. I'm going. That's all. I'm just going to go do the workout. We used to work out together. I have the plan. I know what I'm supposed to do. I go and it's like 7:13 was sunrise. It's like, wow, that's really late. Like 3 or 4 weeks ago, it was 7:00 because I was going down to the beach. Yeah. And then I realized like what's happening. Like every day we're losing sunlight. But now, after today, every day will be gaining
a little more sunlight. Yeah. So here's an activity for you to do that doesn't cost anything. It just takes your person and your phone and maybe a friend, unless you have a camera stand. And you can put this in your book of shadows or in your grimoire, whichever one.
This is really good. So you're going to want to pay attention.
Please do it.
Please, pay attention because I thought this was a really fun and cool activity and a way to connect with what's going on.
To really see it for yourself. And you pick a spot between now and like within the next week or so, maybe 2. Pick a spot that you can take a picture of yourself. Outside when it's sunny. So if it's bright light, even as long as you can get a shadow, get a shadow. And the picture that you really want to capture is where you're standing and you can see your shadow on the ground. And then in 6 months, when it is the summer solstice, you will go to that same spot. So make sure it's a place you can return to. Make sure that you can go back there and take a picture. And
like your backyard.
Yeah. Stand there.
You live there still
somewhere. And then stand in the same spot. And when you take the picture at noon, it's important that it's like the noon time. Or if you pick 1:00, pick 1:00 on the next day too. But the sun is going to be at its height at noon. So that will give you the greatest length of a shadow. And then at the summer solstice, it will pretty much, you'll have no shadow. It be directly under your feet, at least for us here, because we're close to the equator. So when it is noon in the middle of summer, our shadow is under our feet. It doesn't stretch any direction. It's literally the sun is right over the top of us. And it's really cool to see ourselves experiencing the seasons like that. Like that's a true visual of what the planet is really going through, seeing it for ourselves. So that's one thing that you can do that nobody ever talks about. That's a real example of experiencing the solstices, but it does take you being able to compare those pictures. That's what really makes it like, oh, I see it. I can see myself in this event now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like it. That's something that I've always done where I live. I watch the shadows on the ground as they grow and fade back like waves on the beach, and you just.
So as a new witch, I mean, this is something that you can just, I think what we were going to talk about, one of the things we were going to talk about is pick one thing.
Oh,
We've got you'll find so many things on the internet,
things.
On Pinterest, on Facebook, all these things that you're supposed to be doing.
Or ideas.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming, especially for somebody who's brand new to the practice. You're like, oh, you've given me so many ideas. Like, I don't know which one to pick and I can't possibly do them all. So we're here to tell you that it's okay. And it's probably really good to pick one thing this year that you can adapt and then think about adding to that next year.
And it always helps with knowledge. So for Yule, the biggest symbol of Yule is the fire. And that's because fire is a symbol of the sun's return. If you have a candle, you can light a candle and imagine the growth and the sun's return.
I lit all these candles behind us just to represent what we were doing.
Not that she doesn't do that every time because we love
I
candles.
I usually only light one, but tonight I lit three. I lit three of them because I wanted to bring that spirit into this conversation, whatever.
This gathering,
yes. This celebration. We're celebrating.
So there are really simple things to do it's about you sitting and honoring and being like, you can say things like, I acknowledge that it's Yule and it's the longest night. You can ask for messages to be brought to you, like a dream. You can ask for visions to come into your head. You can walk at night when the stars are out and just be thinking and stuff will flow to you if you open yourself up to it. That's part of the getting into the vibe of it, is like, pay attention to what's going on in the world part of the nature part of it, I guess. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Connecting with nature.
Connecting with the nature.
Wherever you are, whatever that is.
Whatever it looks like.
Whatever it looks like for you. Tracy in Boston. Is Tracy with us tonight? Did you see Tracy on?
I did not yet.
She's in Boston. I wonder if they have any snow.
No, but Carmel, I hope I'm saying that right. It's not snow, but there's a lot of rain. And so she celebrated by going and walking in the storm. I love walking in rainstorms so much. Like, I'm that person that when it starts raining outside, I go out there to just start smelling. I'm like, oh God, I love the smell.
We're both water
rain.
signs, so we love anything to do with water.
The rain, I'm not afraid of it at all. Well, the hurricanes here aren't fun, but other than that, all the water that comes through, I'm okay with.
In fact, just to touch on that a little bit, as a water sign, I find I don't have a lot of fire in my natal chart. So, and that's that masculine energy. And so I need that. I need to bring more, because that's the
solar energy.
Yeah, that energy into my life and into my world. Because I'm very strong on the feminine side and not as much on the masculine side. And I realized the masculine side, even though I'm like, I don't want to say.
Were you going to curse?
I was going to curse. I was going to curse men, and they're not all bad, of course. But I was going to curse the male, that I've been with anyway. My experience with them, some of them have been good. A lot of them have been bad. And so I sort of like, F them. I'm strong. I can stand on my own. But what I realize, or what I've been reading, what I've been learning, is that even if you have this like really strong feminine energy around you or with you or in you and is part of you, there's a need for the fire. There's a need for the masculine energy. The sun represents, the sun represents the masculine energy, the sun. And so I'm like, I'm learning to appreciate that more and not connect it with some of the crappy relationships.
Like with actual men.
Yeah, with actual men. Like that's not what it represents. Yeah. So it's a learning process for me though, because I have a lot of years of experience that weren't that great.
Well, another way to think about masculine and feminine energy is masculine energy is active, whereas feminine energy is more passive. And that's only relatable to like how a fire can burn and rage and how water can flow. But it doesn't mean that it's always gentle or anything. It's not passive like that.
But here's the thing with water. We'll ice you out. We'll ice your ass out. We'll tornado over you, hurricane over you, make new paths with water. I mean, we will literally like water will like take water cannot be contained.
Yeah.
It will go, water will flow. And so I just feel like that's really powerful as a water sign. I so connect with that energy. But anyway, I got off on a tangent. Sorry.
No, it's bringing up that Yule is about honoring the sun's return, even though we're at the longest night. Remember the door, starting one cycle. Our days are getting longer. So we're honoring the sun in a way that we're like, we know you're going to return and we support your growth coming back. And so it's like, when we light candles, we're doing cheerleader moves like, yeah, sun, come on back. We can't wait to have you. That's sort of what lighting the candles and having the fires are about. Is like we know and believe that the sun will return and that life will resume to normal, where we, do all of our jobs and we're not all stuck in the house and cold and wet and yuck.
Well, and I just want to say, as a newer witch, like maybe many of you are that are watching this right now, is like every year as I practice and every year as I learn and I educate myself more about all of these things, I grow a little bit. Sometimes the growth is slow. Sometimes there's really big spurts of growth. Like from when I came here to where I am now, big difference, big difference. And that's only been 4.5 years ago. Yeah. But sometimes there's littler things. So I guess I want to say to you, if you're new, keep at it day after day, and you'll start to see little changes,
little bites.
Yeah, little things in your life. Yeah. And don't feel pressured to do all the things that you see that look like they're so beautiful. There's so many beautiful posts and reels and shorts and all this stuff out there. I sit here like this going like, oh my God.
It's inspirational.
It's so cool. Can I do that? And do I have the means to do? No, this is what I got right here. And I got little things around my house.
But I think that one of the things when I teach new witches that they want everything all together at once. And it's harder for us to take our time and go slow to build and learn and really then the practice. So the best way to do it is to learn something and then practice that thing, put it into practice somehow. So whatever you learn about Yule this year, try to learn one new thing. I'm still learning. I still look up stuff because they write new articles about things they found, history books, whatever. And I'm like, I always have to refresh that a little bit because I have my own practice that I'm very comfortable with, but I like to stay up to date on like, oh yeah, this is going on out there. So over time, you will build your practice into what you want it to be. I've known women specifically, because I haven't taught many male witches, but they start on their journey and then they spend several $100s gathering supplies and thinking that they need a lot of things like these witch kits with like 25 herbs and all this stuff. And then they realize they don't ever use it because there never comes a time for it. And it's like, that is part of the slow down and just take it step by step. Only get what you need. Know you need it for something and then buy it once. And you may never do spell, ritual, anything that needs those things again. But if it's something that you like to have in your practice always, like candles.
I've done that. I mean, as a new witch, I've done that. I bought all these oils and stuff, this beautiful oil. Like it was, I don't know, it was $30 or something. So like all these oils that do all these things, it's still sitting and I haven't utilized it. And I only just recently, and I think it was maybe our first one of this series with Yule, where you mixed an essential oil with salt.
Yeah.
So I never knew that you could do that. So you can you can mix an essential oil with salt and stir it up and get the smell of it. And it was like, because I haven't really known what to do with these, but I wanted them because I wanted all these witchy things, you know, and like, well, I got to have that. Well, wait, I got to have that too. Right. Mm-hmm. So and then I bought a whole thing of different colors of candles. It was like, well, I must have that because every spell calls for like a black candle, a red candle, a pink candle, a purple candle. So I have to have that in my witch kit. Right. Yeah. Never used them. Just saying.
Well, and it's getting familiar with the items, right? Like
this is the story of a new witch and what you can avoid by, like Jamie said, pick one thing, buy one thing, find out if you're going to use it, if it resonates with you, if you can incorporate it in your practice. And if you can't, then you don't need it, even though this list on Pinterest says there's 50 things here that you need to be a witch. You don't really need
or to celebrate, right? And there are a lot of ideas out there. And I guess, you know, if I could talk to each one of you personally, or we could have a big group call, it would be amazing. Because then we could say, the question to ask yourself is, how do I want to connect with this holiday? What's important to me this year? Because every year it may not be the same. You know, for me this year, it's really important for me to take care of myself. I've had an extremely hard year. So I'm actually like, I'm not even setting up my altar because I'm just telling myself, I don't have the energy for it this year. And that's okay. So letting ourselves off the hook from the pressure of what we should be doing in our practices. You know, Stephen just said something like, you don't need all of these extra things in order to be a witch and do stuff. You need your intention. And my intention is to take care of myself during this time. And what I truly need is to not do a lot of stuff and spread myself thin. So that's what my practice looks like this year for Yule.
Well, and that's like not putting the pressure on yourself to feel like you have to do things. Yeah. I know. And if I may share your recent situation where you just did a spell.
Oh yeah.
So and I don't know that you've done, how many spells have you done this year? I don't want to put you on the spot. Maybe three. But she just, she just shared with me that, you know, a situation came up in her family and she's like, okay, this is something that I can do. This is something that I want to do.
Yeah.
So when you have a situation in your life where you're like, this really needs to be addressed. And so I'm going to do a spell for that. And I think that's
because then you have the energy for it, right? Because the action and the momentum is there then. Yeah. And that's what I did. I just like started getting stuff together and I was like, this is happening. I woke up early that morning because I like to do it when my family is still sleeping because I go outside. Lo and behold, my kids still came out when I was in the middle of it. I'm like, son, I'm doing a spell. Can you please come back? Like, he knows what I'm doing.
Okay, and wait, and I want to point out that for new witches, that's okay. Even though she was interrupted while she was sitting in her garden and she was on the ground and she was like focusing on her intentions and all the things that she
really
brought out.
In your energy.
She was like in her energy and then she got interrupted. You know, some books will tell you that if you get interrupted, the whole thing's
start over.
You start over. It's usually, it's not because it's like, it's what's in here. Like, what do you believe about that situation?
Yeah.
And Jamie has enough confidence and years of experience to know that those interruptions are it's temporary. I'm going to come right back and I'm going to be able to get right back into the energy that I was focused on and feeling before I got this like minor interruptions, like, go away, I'm busy right now.
Like, I don't want to tell him like, son, no, don't talk to me right now. Leave me alone. I don't want to tell him that, but so I let him say his piece and I'm like, I'll be in the house in like 10 minutes. I'll be in there. I'll talk to you in 10 minutes. I promise. So he's just like, okay, well, I thought I should tell you this. I was like, thank you. I love you. Thank you. Okay. I'll see you in a minute. You know, like,
so at that point you're trying to keep the energy going while you're like,
I don't want to be annoyed with it. You know, I don't want to switch that thing off, the vibration of what I was in. And then it was like 10 minutes later, it was done. You know, my spell that I did was about 25 minutes. And that was only because the length of the candle to burn. And that's what I decided was going to be the timer, was when the candle burns down, that's when it's done. So I'm not sure why we started on that.
Just because I guess what I wanted to point out was that because our audience is new witches. That's who our audience is like, we're talking to new witches who are coming into this practice and like, I really want to connect with this. And how do I do that? And distill all the information that's out there? How do I make it my own when there's so much? When Jamie started her practice 25 years ago, the internet was
no. The internet didn't have anything on it.
The internet had nothing. So it was what? It was 25 years ago. So it was like high school, 1999, 1998, 99. Yeah. A long time ago when there wasn't much. And even but now it's like we have as new witches, there's so much.
And I love it, but it must be really hard. It must be really difficult, which is why we started all of this, to kind of help cut through the fluff.
Yeah.
You know, to like try and make it more simple.
And I think my message would be like to relieve yourself of the pressure to do all the things that you read about and see on social media, because I feel like that can be a place where you're just like,
we feel defeated before you begin, right? Yeah. Like, oh, that's a lot. Where do I get this? How do I do that? And then it's over. Then you're overwhelmed. Then what's your energy like? Your overwhelmed energy is a low vibration energy. You're just like, this is a lot.
Instead
of like the excitement of like, ooh, I get to put this together and I'm really excited and look at the colors and, you know, you craft something, and that's when your energy is much higher. You can feel it. It radiates off of you. Yeah. So I think that that's part of the having a lot of stuff to look through and going like, oh my God, I got to make a decision of what I'm going to do to celebrate Yule.
Well, and then you got to like find everything to do, like all these things. If you buy a spell book, it's got 14 things and 17 of them are not in your area, and you got to order them from India or wherever.
India.
You know? I don't know. I'm just making that up.
Yes, where they practice witchcraft all the time in India.
I don't know it.
It's just like somewhere else, not close. Got it.
Anyway, okay. So did we cover everything? Because we have a lot of comments, and I would love to be able to read through them and just respond.
Oh well, I've been reading them. So
I have not been able to read them because I've been like,
it's been so wonderful.
Yes. And by the way, did you all notice?
Oh, your bracelets. Look at her.
I just want to do a shout out to TSTV, which is Taylor Swift, Taylor's version. I'm a recently converted Swiftie, thanks to my daughter, who I went as you know, I was like her, what would you call that? I went as her date to the Eras Tour movie earlier this year.
Because my husband told me no.
And because her husband was like,
he's like,
and so no. I was like, I'll go because I don't want you to go alone. And I was not a Taylor Swift fan. The only thing I'd ever heard about Taylor Swift at that point was the things that they play on the radio. And I was like, she's so emo. Like, yeah, I'm not into. I was a Miranda Lambert fan. If you know Taylor and you know Miranda, you know the difference between those two. Mm-hmm. So I was a fan of Miranda Lambert, all their music, all the time. And then I went to the Eras Tour movie with Jamie, and I was like, after 3 hours, like, oh my God, Miranda, who's Miranda? All of a sudden, nothing but Taylor Swift. Sold. So this week I hosted a Taylor Swift party here at my house and rented the movie, and we made friendship bracelets. And what my plan is, and I just want to tell you which is this, because it's not really about Taylor Swift. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bunch of bracelets that are witchy themed, you know, with witchy things on. Like one of mine says witch, goddess, Scorpio sun, Virgo rising, Libra moon, goddess, and so on. So, and I'm going to take these out with me, and I'm going to share them with people as I go out into the community. And they're like, oh, I really like your bracelets. Like, which one would you like? Which one connects with you? So that's my plan with them. And I just feel like it's a really good way for me and my own community to try to connect with other people who might have the same vibe as me as being a witch. Yeah. So I just wanted to share that.
I think that that's where I get a lot of people who our conversation about witchcraft always starts because they see my jewelry or something and they make a comment. They're like, oh, I really love your jewelry. I'm like, thank you. Then they'll say something like, do you, you know, and they don't know what to say exactly. And I was like, yes, I'm a witch. Yes, that's what I do. Yeah. And then the conversation, I'd love to know more about that. So I can see that happening with Kat while she's out, that somebody wants to connect with her and learn like, oh, I'd love to learn more about witchcraft or, you know, being a witch or pagan or whatever.
I know there's a lot of witches in our area because I see them on our meetup group.
Yeah.
And they're local. They're like in Sarasota County or Venice, Sarasota, somewhere near us. I'm like, I know you're out there. So how do we get together?
Yeah. So she's looking to make connections.
Yeah.
And Taylor Swift inspired witch bracelets.
Yeah, now. Witch bracelets, not friendship bracelets. But they're friendship bracelets too. But also just to be able to spread, and some of them are going to be things like words like kindness and love and beauty and you're beautiful. And so I have all these plans. I have like 1989 ideas for, I'm stealing that from my daughter-in-law, for ideas for witch bracelets. And I'm ordering stuff off of Amazon so that I can make them. And so I can get out into my own community and try to connect with people who are with my vibe, who are my vibe. So that, because I think, we're all spread out all over the country, or even in Florida. Florida's a big state. We're in the middle of Florida. We got witch friends that are part of our group up north. We got witch, and it's hard for those people to get together. But if you can find that, it may be a way. I feel like it may be a way for me to connect to witches that I can actually get together with, and like do rituals, do a moon, something with a full moon down at the beach. And it may inspire you. I hope me telling you this inspires you to do something similar in your own area, because I think that's one of the things with witches. It's like, sometimes it can feel like a lonely practice. Yeah. Because like, where are all the witches at?
Where are my witches at?
Listen, and I'll tell you what, your witches are everywhere. You just have to be able to, we're just not, it's like, we don't have the red hat, or we don't have the whatever to identify.
Red hat?
I'm not going to say what that is, but we don't have the red hat.
I know who you're talking about.
But we don't have that thing. We don't broadcast.
Yeah.
We don't broadcast that we're witches.
We do it in subtle ways. Really.
Right.
It's very subtle.
I mean, Jamie's wearing, she wears this a lot, which is a chakra pendant. And somebody seeing that who knows what chakras are. Some people don't even know what that is, but they would be able to connect
a conversation.
With that. Yeah. So I hope that my witch friendship bracelets inspires you to do something in your area so that you can connect with people that are local to you. Because I feel like it can be lonely if you can't connect with other witches.
Yeah. I like to embrace the community getting together. So you do have H. Baker said she's in Pinellas County and she'd love to connect with you.
Oh my gosh.
And then also Linda said, where are we at? We're in Venice, Florida.
We're Sarasota County. Yeah. And so for me, what that means is I can go to Tampa, or I can go to Fort Myers. Like either one of those is about an hour from me. And I would love to meet anybody who is within an hour or so of me. Beyond that, it's sort of like a day trip. If I had to go to Orlando to meet witches, it would be a whole day trip.
Yeah.
And we've done that before. We went to the Spirit Fest in Orlando. It's like a 2-hour drive for us. So
it was a long way.
It was a long way. So if I could connect with people locally, I mean, I would love that. I recently attended there was a sound healing yoga on Venice Beach. I saw it on Facebook for full moon, for the Gemini full moon. So I saw this on Facebook, and it's like sound healing. It was a meditation. It was for the Gemini full moon. And I was like, I'm going to that. And I went there, and there was like 30 people there. And I sent Jamie pictures of it.
Have to be witches.
Yeah. So I sent Jamie pictures of that, and I was like, we need to do this. We need to post it so we can draw people in that are close enough that we can get together. And I guess what I'm saying to you, if you're listening to this out there, is that you can do this in your local area too. I guess it's like think outside, like how do you connect? Because it's really nice to make friends and bring people into your circle who are on the same level, on the same vibrational level that you are.
And want to grow. So I want you to know that it is okay that if you meet up with people and the vibe isn't right and the friendship thing doesn't work out, that's okay. That has happened to us too.
Oh my God. Can we tell the story of Moon Guy?
No.
Oh, come on. It's so funny. You guys haven't heard this in like a year.
No. We did meetups out in the world away from the computer.
She's going to tell him. She's going to tell
it's
the
just
story.
that sometimes people show up because they have nothing else to do. And then you're kind of stuck there in that situation for a while, and it's uncomfortable. And you want to be polite, but also they might be crazy. And what do? At least you're in public, right? So there's just things. If you find yourself in a situation where you do host a meetup and you find people that don't vibe with you, that's okay. Let them fall away. The universe will put the people in your path that are meant to find you. That's what, because I want
to share with you 2 different approaches to this scenario.
Oh gosh.
So with this, we met a guy, we had a little meetup down in Port Charlotte, which is just about 30 minutes from us. And we had one person show up, and it was this young dude. And as soon as he started talking, I was like, oh my God, this guy's fucking crazy, right? And so that was my approach to it. It was like, shut out. I was like, I don't want to hear you. You're crazy. The things that you're saying are just like, they're so
things
far
like
out
the
there.
The moon is not real.
The moon's not real. I haven't eaten for 4 months.
He wants to be a breatharian.
Breatharian and never eat food. Yeah. Okay, so me, I'm just like,
very different.
This is me like this. I'm like,
oh she can't hide her facial expressions very well.
And this is Jamie. She's like, well, tell me about that. So you can approach it. So this is 2 different approaches. Scorpio, Pisces, right? I'm just like, please, you're full of shit. And Jamie's like, well, tell me about that. And so for her, it was like, I was curious. She maintained that level of curiosity that me as a Scorpio, I don't have the capacity for it. I'm like, you're not real. I don't even, it's like, F you, get lost. I don't want to hear it. And Jamie's like, yeah, tell me all about that. And I'm just like, oh God.
Okay. Well, I didn't lean into him like this. I kept my distance.
She did.
I kept my distance, and I was just like,
but
this is awkward.
Listen,
but
curious.
He was gonna stay.
But it was, I really, what I appreciated about that experience was her saying is like, I just decided to go with it and ask him questions.
Yeah.
And I thought,
explain this to me.
As a Scorpio, I'm like, that's not a bad way to approach that. Even though I might be like, you're so full of crap. And I'm just like, you're so weird and I can't connect with you. But maybe I felt like I learned something from that experience where I could be like,
the student becomes the teacher, right? Yes.
This is what we call mirroring. Where I'm like you're copying people that you're like, oh, I want to be more like that. So
just try it. With the gatherings, we're hoping that you guys, if we could get everybody together, you guys know we would. Oh my gosh.
Listen, I would have you all over to my house.
I know. We'd have like a witch's compound, and people would just be able to come whenever they wanted and stay. And little cottages and
actually, that's our ultimate goal. That is
to make a witch village where witches can come. And
we're gonna buy like 40 acres in Mayaca or somewhere out in this central Florida where it's just like totally nature, and we're living off the land, and everybody can come, and we're rescuing dogs and other animals that are
and learning about herbs and potions and everything.
I mean, that
future goals. We're not supposed to be planning right now, remember?
No, it's just we're not
something
planning.
We've been thinking about for a long time.
It's just it's a really lovely idea that we can aspire to and maybe bring to fruition.
This life or the next.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm ready for either this life or the next.
Okay.
With that, we discussed a lot of things other than Yule as well. There's a ton of information out there on Yule if you really wanted to go and start looking for stuff. But remember the things that we said. Keep it small. Learn a little bit each year to add it to your practice. You do not need everything that's out there in order to do anything. You really just truly need yourself and your intentions, like Steven said. And just go with what feels right for you in the moment. Don't try to exert too much. And then you won't get all hung up and tired of and saying you're not a good witch and that you don't practice enough and feeling crappy about it.
Well, and I think the other important point that we made about this time of the year is that it's not a time for planning. It's a time for reflecting. So if you're feeling the pressure of the new year and you have to make a New Year's resolution, it's like,
what are you going to change?
January 1, what are you going to change? I'm going to start going to the gym. I'm going to do this. I'm going to read more. I'm going to whatever. this is actually not the time to do that. Which
just tell people I'm waiting for the equinox to happen when the day is equal
so
with
the pressure is off for you to decide what it is that you want to make as your goals for 2024, because you can reflect on that. And this is a good time to reflect on that and journal about it. But just do that part. Don't start making plans this time of the year, because the earth is quiet and there's a reason for that. And that's what
mimic
we're
the earth.
Mimic the earth. So
that's part of the traditions within witchcraft, right? Is that we try to go with the flow of what's happening in the seasons. And so you can say mimic what the earth is doing around you.
Have you been reading? Because I haven't been reading.
Yes. I do want to say, Linda, welcome back. We're so glad to have you back. That's wonderful.
I'm sorry, my little eyes are
It's okay. She can't.
I can't.
But then
I have to do this.
It doesn't make for a very great video when
old eyes. Old eyes. That's even though I have contacts and it's like old eyes. So I'm counting on my daughter's young eyes to keep me up to date with everything. So what else do we need to talk
and
about?
H. Baker, I just want to let you know, this was a really hard year for me as well. And the 8th year coming up, we're going to have stuff going on to the channel that is about what to do after you've had this really tough 7 years. 7 year is because it's the spiritual year. It's supposed to.
Do we want to tell people what the 7 year mean? I mean, how to determine what year it is? Do you want to talk about that at all? Like, why was this year a 7 year?
Because 2 + 2 + 3 = 7.
So numerology. So we're talking about numerology.
So you can look that up if you want to get a head start on what the 8 year will bring. I always think about it as balance and prosperity, but this is why when I feel the urge to do things that I know that have full fruition, intention behind them, even for next year, and I had the energy to do it in this season, I've started it because I'm like, okay, this is definitely where I'm gearing the change towards. But looking up numerology for the year stuff, again, all this stuff's online. There's nothing that we can tell you that you can't find online. But what people don't tell you to do is to slow down, take it easy, take it small, bite by bite. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Connect with others that make you feel good. Find those feel good vibes with people. And I heard this from my trash guy today.
Your trash guy? Trash guy.
I like my trash men. I have 3 of them. It's like yard, recycling, and then regular trash.
Thank you, Sarasota County Waste Management.
Listen, they're so great. I give them Christmas cards and cookies every year. So I went out to greet him this year, and he told me that his son had passed away from a car accident. He's 25. And I just, because he's like, I've been out of the job for 5 weeks. I was like, yeah, I didn't know what happened. So I was just like, I am so sorry about that. And when I gave him the stuff, he said this phrase to me. He said, love someone, hug someone. So then I hugged him. We hugged. And I told my husband, I was like, I hugged the trash man today. He goes, yeah, I don't know. Why are you hugging the trash guy? Like, no, listen, we had a really magical moment of, learning grief, because my husband lost a child who had 5 children of her own. So child loss when they're adults and they have their own children, and it's like your children go before you kind of thing. All of that. That's what he was saying. He's like, you just never know. So don't take all of it too seriously, because you may be planning for something that's never going to come to fruition, right? Like, enjoy the present moment. Be here, be now. And then I loved his saying, love someone, hug someone. So if you find yourself being able to love someone, hug someone, just go with that, because I loved it. He was doing very well for having.
So we have like 2.5 minutes before we're going to be at 60 minutes here, but I want to share something with you. So I just was invited to the celebration of a marriage between 2 people who are in their 80s. One is like, I think they're both, they're very mature in age. And when everybody that was there was elderly than me, more elderly, like at least 15 years older than me. And I just remember I was like, I'm going to go and celebrate this love, because these are 2 people who are together and have decided to make this commitment to each other for whatever time that they have left. And I went there, and there was this just feeling in my heart of the love between these 2, and of all the people who were there to celebrate them. And I tell you, I was sitting at the table with Jamie and her husband, and I said, "We're at the kids' table," because we were the youngest people there. Because we were literally like the youngest people there. But I guess the joy of it was for me was to see two people in love and the celebration of that and being able to be a part of that. Yeah. And I hugged them, like really hugged both of them. When they come up to me, I was like, and it made me love someone, hug someone. I was just like, oh my God, it really
touched
did.
Your soul,
It did.
Yeah.
It touched my soul. So I think if you get the opportunity to love someone, hug someone, I think that's beautiful.
Love someone, hug someone. I'm lucky I get to love and hug her all the time.
I wish we could hug all of you.
Internet hugs out there.
Okay.
We hope you guys have a great Yule season. It doesn't have to be done today or tomorrow. Remember, it can last for 2 weeks.
And for those of you watching, sorry, it was like 60 minutes, but it is what it is.
With us. Yes.
Yeah. All right.
We will see you guys soon. We don't know because we didn't post anything yet of when our next meeting is, but we will let you know. The hearts. Okay. Bye, you guys.
Bye.